Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. My name's Elena. I'm 32 years old, and for months now, there's been this weight inside me, like a secret I'm afraid to say out loud but can't stop feeling. It's been eating me up, and I have to confess it. I told him he wasn't enough for me anymore. That moment changed everything. He blocked me, my friends, and just moved on like I was a story he no longer wanted to tell. When we first met, it was like breathing again, safe, warm, electric. I remember how his hands fit perfectly around my waist, how his kisses made my skin tingle, how lying next to him felt like coming home. There was this quiet excitement in the way he'd pull me close, a softness in his touch that whispered, "I'm yours." But over time, something started to shift. The kisses grew shorter, less certain, like we were both trying not to fall into silence. His touch became lighter, more distant, like a brushstroke rather than a promise. Nights I once craved, wrapped up in his arms, feeling the heat of us tangled together, turned into cold, stiff hugs that felt more like obligations than affection. I'd reach for him and find my hands met with walls I couldn't break through. I remember the exact moment I realized it was different. We were lying in bed, the dim light casting soft shadows on the ceiling. I leaned in for a kiss, expecting the familiar spark, but his lips barely moved, and his eyes stayed fixed on the ceiling like I was invisible. I pulled back, heart sinking, and in that stillness, I felt something inside me crack. That's when I knew, I was losing him, but more painfully, I was losing myself. Elena shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her fingers tracing the frayed edge of the throw pillow as Jason sat beside her. He's a firefighter, strong, dependable, the kind of man who's used to showing strength and action rather than words. After a long shift, he'd come home tired, but his way of loving her was always the same, a firm hand on her back, a quick kiss on the cheek, a silent "I'm here." Tonight was no different. He reached for her, pulling her close with that familiar, almost urgent grip. But instead of comfort, it felt like pressure. Like he was trying to squeeze life back into something slipping away. His hands moved over her shoulders, his body leaning into hers, but Elena felt herself shrinking beneath his touch. "I'm here," he said quietly, voice rough from smoke and exhaustion. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to lean into that moment, to let him hold her and fix whatever was broken between them. But all she could feel was a wall rising inside her, a silent scream that said, "This isn't enough. I need more." Elena struggled, words tangling in her throat. "Jason, sometimes I don't feel like you see me. Like you're touching me, but I'm not really here." He pulled back slightly, confusion knitting his brow. "I don't get it. I'm right here, aren't I? What else do you want?" She swallowed hard, heart pounding. "I want to feel you with me. Not just your hands or your body. I want to hear you say how you feel, to know you're thinking about me even when you're not touching me. I need to feel safe inside, not just on the surface." Jason's jaw tightened. "I show you every day. Maybe you just want too much." That hurt, more than the missed kiss or the cold hug. Because she knew he was trying in the only way he knew how, but that way wasn't enough. And now, the distance between them was growing wider with every misunderstanding, every unmet need left unspoken. They sat there, close but miles apart, two people who loved each other but didn't know how to reach across the silence. Jason came up behind me in the kitchen, wrapping his arms around my waist with that familiar warmth. His hand slid down, giving my hip a quick, playful squeeze, the kind he used to do that made me smile. But this time I flinched, the sudden touch pulling me away instead of closer. He caught the change in me and chuckled softly, pressing a kiss to my neck. "What's wrong? You're being all quiet." I forced a small laugh, trying to shrug it off. "Nothing. Just tired, I guess." But inside, I was twisting myself into knots. When he leaned in for a kiss, I met his lips but felt nothing, no spark, no fire, just a hollow space where connection used to live. I pulled back slightly, awkward and unsure, hoping he wouldn't notice. He looked at me, eyebrows raised. "You okay? You're kinda distant." I bit my lip, wishing I could explain that it wasn't just distance. That his touch, once so electric, now felt like a reminder of how far apart we'd grown. I wanted to want him. I wanted to melt into his arms like I used to. But my body felt like it was on pause. Why does everything have to turn into sex? I asked myself quietly, the question echoing louder than I wanted. Why can't we just be close without it meaning more? We were sitting across from each other at the dinner table, candles flickering softly, the kind of setup Jason had planned to make things right. He'd cooked my favorite meal, and the music was low and sweet, trying to fill the silence that had grown between us. But I couldn't hold it anymore. "I'm tired, Jason," I said suddenly, voice cracking. "I'm tired of pretending this is okay. I told you you weren't enough for me anymore. And you just blocked me out. Me, my friends. Like I was nothing." His fork froze midair, eyes wide, confused. "Elena, what are you saying?" Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, and the dam broke. I couldn't stop myself. "You don't see me. You don't feel me. I'm here, and you're already gone." My voice shook, the hurt raw and exposed. Jason stared, silent. Then his face hardened, the confusion turning into something colder. "I don't know what you want from me," he said quietly. "I've been trying." I pushed my chair back, hands trembling. Trying isn't enough. As I walked away, shame crept in, because I'd just unleashed everything I'd been holding back, and it felt like I'd shattered the last piece of us. I wanted to scream and cry and run, but all I felt was this heavy guilt settling in my chest. Why did it have to come to this? Why did I have to say those words that made him block me, block everyone out, and move on? Was I really the one who wasn't enough, or was it something else entirely? I didn't know anymore. Days slipped by in a quiet fog. Jason and I moved through the same space but felt like strangers sharing a house, not lovers sharing a life. He barely looked at me anymore, his eyes distant, his smiles forced. I caught glimpses of his pain too, the way he'd stare out the window after work, jaw clenched tight, or how he'd sink into the couch with a tired slump that wasn't just from exhaustion. One evening, I found him sitting alone in the dark, flickering TV casting shadows across his face. I wanted to reach out, to say something, anything, but the words got stuck behind the wall between us. Instead, I sat silently beside him, my hand hovering, unsure if he wanted it or would pull away. I missed him. I missed the way he used to know me without words, the way his touch made me feel seen and safe. But I didn't know how to cross the distance that had grown so wide, how to mend what we'd broken with words that felt too heavy to say aloud. And the guilt, oh, the guilt. For pushing him away, for telling him he wasn't enough, for the silence I let stretch between us. I could feel it like a weight in my chest, pressing down on everything. That night, as I lay awake, I asked myself the hardest question I'd faced in months: do I want to try again? Can I find my way back to him, or is this the end of us? The answer didn't come easy. But I knew one thing: I couldn't keep living with this silence between us. Something had to change. For this story, given the title's tone, I told him he wasn't enough for me anymore. He blocked me, my friends, and moved on. I'll lean toward the bittersweet ending where she realizes it's too late, but there's still a tender moment that lingers between them. The next morning, I found Jason asleep on the couch. The afternoon sun spilled through the curtains, casting a warm glow over his worn-out face. For a moment, I just watched him, the way his chest rose and fell in steady rhythm, the faint lines of exhaustion softened by peace. I wanted to reach out, to shake him awake and say, "Let's fix this. Let's try." But the words felt hollow, weighed down by everything we'd lost. Instead, I sat beside him quietly and wrapped an arm around his shoulders. He stirred, opening his eyes slowly, meeting mine without surprise or anger, just tired acceptance. He leaned into me, resting his head briefly on my shoulder. It wasn't a promise or a plea. It was just two people holding on to the last thread of something that once was. I pressed a soft kiss to his forehead, whispering, "Goodbye," even as my heart broke, knowing some love doesn't stay enough. The silence between us was heavy but honest. And sometimes, that's all we get. If you asked me what I've learned through all of this, I'd tell you this: love isn't just about wanting someone beside you or feeling their touch. It's about being truly seen, and seeing someone else, beyond the surface, beyond the easy moments. Desire isn't just physical, it's the hunger to connect in the deepest, quietest parts of ourselves. I thought love was enough, that if we held on, it would fix itself. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Sometimes people change. Sometimes the space between two hearts grows too wide, and no matter how much you want to close the gap, you can't. And that's okay. Because what really matters is learning to recognize when you're losing yourself in someone else, and finding the courage to reclaim that self, even if it means letting go. So here I am. Not broken, but real. Not whole because of him, but because I finally see myself clearly. Maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. Maybe that's where real love begins.